The elephant comes from Camille Saint-Saëns' Carnival of the Animals, one of the most famous and beloved pieces in the whole of the classical repertory. Now, although the elephant isn't so very common on audition lists, it is probably the most famous of pieces written for double bass, so it was my first choice for this video. Now, looking at the score, we see right away that there are quite a few more directions here than in the other pieces we've looked at in this series. Saint-Saëns writes a few more things than Beethoven, Mozart, or even Brahms. Now, I'm talking about the stuff that's above and below the notes. There's quite a few accents and two kinds, the normal ones and the wedge ones. We've got dots and slurs and a few dynamics that lean toward the loud side of things. Now, from the Romantic period onwards, composers have been adding an increasing amount of instructions to their scores. For example, you can open a score of a Mahler symphony and you'd find lots of articulations and dynamics, sforzandos, hairpins, and lots of German words. Almost as many of these as there are notes. So this is the topic of this video, articulations, and how to use that to portray a character or a caricature, and in this case, the elephant. Now, just for a moment, let's consider this piece without the articulations, and let's also disregard the pomposo from the tempo marking. Now, suddenly it looks like a simple 3/8 time dance, probably a waltz, and you'd play it elegantly and maybe phrase it in mostly groups of 2 bars like this. But you say this is completely opposite to what's written on the page. And you're right, the accents are on the second bar of the 2 bar units, which is usually what you wouldn't do. And now adding the pomposo and the forte, it sounds like this. Excuse me while I try to play this. No worries, Eugenia will play this for you beautifully and on the right instrument very soon. And this creates this feeling of lopsidedness and of clumsiness. And that's the whole humor of this piece. It's as if Saint-Saëns knew what a musician would do if there weren't markings, and he added those articulations as if to tell the musician, don't do what you normally do. This is especially true at the end of the piece. So in the violin video, I stressed that you should always phrase away from the ends of phrases, unless otherwise marked. And here it is definitely marked otherwise. So this is how it sounds if you phrase away. Elegant, right? And now this is how it's written with the extra accents and dots. Now this is funny, it's a caricature. So you see that the articulation is really important in conveying the humor and the character of the elephant. He's pompous, as the tempo marking says, but he's also playful and a little clumsy and lovable. And because he's French, he's also got a bit of class. It's very common for bass players to add glissandos to the slurs for added effect. Remember to add extra oomph to the end, the fortissimo at the end, and those notes with the printed dots after figure 2, they can be extra short. I'll leave it to Eugenia to explain how to do all of this technically. Thank you very much for exploring the art of phrasing with me, and remember to have lots of fun with these articulations.
accent in this piece. One is vertical accent and the other one is horizontal accent. Vertical accent is shorter and louder. For example, so this E flat, I play faster bow and more pressure. For example, from the beginning, there's another type of accent which is longer and slightly louder. And I'm going to tell you something about the glissando. This is how we do the glissando. We use the slow shift so I'm doing this. The glissando is creating some effect of smooth and maybe a little bit of humorous and romantic effect. The other technique is I use the glissando for this subject at the second time. Glissando is I use the slow shift and on the same strings.